Hey, Youest You listeners. It's Julie. I am so honored to be here with you. As always, love having you with me, and I'm so excited for today's guest. I just want to remind you, if you haven't already joined the You-est You community, you can hop on over to the youestyou.com. I've got gifts, a personal growth plan and a manifesto that I use myself, and just an ability to subscribe to the podcast and see what's coming up. All right. So we're all in for a treat. We have such a great guest today. She's someone that I have gotten to know and love, and I'm excited to introduce you to Sophie Morrison. Let me tell you about Sophie, and then you're going to get to meet her. Sophie is the best-selling author of Brain Judo and host of the Epic Fail podcast. Her content focuses on how entrepreneurs can turn weaknesses into strengths and find opportunity in failure. I love that. To learn more about Sophie, we'll have that in the show notes, but you can find her at it'sophiemorrison.com. And without further ado, Sophie, thank you for being here today. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for having me on. Whenever we talk, so I'll share with your listeners that Julie and I, we're not holding back. No, don't worry. It's not that
okay.
other
That's
thing.
All right.
No, so Julie and I do a lot of work together and have a call about once a week. And it's really just awesome. And there's always so much kind of unforeseen synergy and all these little paths and twists and turns our conversations take. And every time we talk, we're like, oh my gosh, we should have been recording this. So I'm excited we're finally recording this.
So true. It's so fun. Sophie has been like I want to call you a secret weapon. You're just brilliant.
Not a secret anymore. It just makes me a weapon.
You're just a weapon, but I don't really resonate with weapon. You're a secret. You're a magic wand. She's a magic wand. That's way more appropriate. Yeah. Just such a huge, you're inspirational, and you've been so helpful in helping me with a lot of what I'm developing. And I really want to focus on you. And first of all, you're Youest You, which there wasn't a whole lot in your bio, which I know was by design. So we're just want to dive in. Tell us about who is Sophie Morrison, and about your book, about your podcast, about you, and what you're up to in life.
So in terms of who is Sophie Morrison, that's something I'd really like to find out. So a minute ago when you're like, we're going to get to learn more about Sophie Morrison, I was like, great, I cannot wait for that. So the bio is short because I have been really into getting to know myself at a next level lately. I've cut out alcohol for the last several months and really been focused on eating high vibrational foods. And so that's things that are alive, not live meat, just to clarify. But
good clarification. Thank you.
Live plant-based foods, sprouts, sometimes dried fruits and vegetables, but really just having high vibrational content and food that I'm consuming, and really energizing relationships. And as it's happened, I really believe that all of us have this, I don't want to call it clairvoyance because it doesn't fully encapture everything that I'm trying to say, but we have this ability to just see things so clearly and have this intuition we can really get in touch with. And as we start to strip away some of the things obstructing that channel, like negative content, things that make us fearful, low vibrational energy draining foods, substances like alcohol, just kind of garbage thoughts. I hate it's like when people say there's no such thing as a stupid question. I hate saying, oh, there's no such thing as a garbage thought, but like there are. So
totally.
As you start to remove some of that stuff and clear up your channel, I think you not only start to get more intuition about the world around you, but also within the world within you. So I am just trying to kind of keep an open mind about myself, if that makes sense. And not the other thing it's really making me realize is how much, especially being someone whose content is, I'm my own brand. Sophie Morrison is my brand. And I've really found myself getting very ego driven with a lot that I'm doing. And so one of the reasons I have a really short bio is because I wrote my long bio. It was listing accolades and things to be impressive and things to try and get people to.
Bless you. Yeah, the real you. It's all good. Just sneeze. Good. Bring it in. Bless you.
Thank you. So anyway, I was looking back at the bio I originally wrote for myself a few months ago that I just send out for podcasts. And it's pretty much a list of achievements. And really the only reason to do that, like at the end of the day, I don't think listeners really care how many books I've sold, what I've won, whatever accolades I have. I think they care about what kind of value I'm going to be able to deliver to them and how actionable it is and how authentic I'm being. So, there's not much that I think is relevant to include in my bio anymore when I'm truly coming from a place of authenticity and service. So that's why I have a short bio in a nutshell.
I love it in a nutshell. Are you eating nuts? Is that part of a high vibrational plan? Although I think there's more to that question because I know you're.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Would nuts be considered part of that? Would nuts be considered?
I think they would be considered that to some people. For me, I have this very rebellious dark side that I embrace. And my boyfriend is deathly allergic to all nuts and things that are produced in nut facilities. And so I have like a nut-free household. Most days just completely I treat it like I have a nut allergy because I just never want to risk it. And then the days I know I'm for sure not going to see him, I just binge on nuts. Oh my gosh. I stayed at my parents' last night. I must have had half a jar of almond butter. It was so good. It was even better than when I was allowed to normally have it.
That's so funny.
That's one of my little outlets.
So funny. I love it. Before we get into your best-selling book and the podcast, and I know you have a lot to say about starting before you're ready. We're going to talk about that as well, which I love that. I really want to just reflect for a minute. I love what you said, just asking about you and saying, I've really given myself time to develop my connection to myself, to my intuition. And I'm just thinking for those listening, this is like, what you're talking about is really it sounds like moving away all the obstacles, the toxins, the things that can cloud our judgment and vision, that can produce garbage thoughts, right? And so just really like to take out alcohol, I love what you said about eating these, alive foods, high vibrational foods that are from the earth or the tree, trees or that
have energy, things
energy.
that are
yeah,
microwaved or frozen. Like think about if you were to do any of the things to a human that you do to your food, it's just not logical. Like, do you want to soak your food in water and sprout it? Like, would you, water's good for people, water's good for plants, or would you put a person in a microwave or freeze a person or cook a person at a high temperature? Like anything that drains living things of their life, when you put that in your body is going to drain you of your life, So
I love that.
Same with meat. I'm such a hypocrite. I need to go on the record and say, I don't ethically agree with eating fish, but my love of sushi surpasses my morals. So I totally eat sushi. You're going to see me eat sushi if you follow me on Instagram. That's most of what I post, I think. So I just want to get that on the table that there's a little bit of an incongruency there and I'm owning it. But anyway.
Yeah. Mostly alive things. And
mostly alive things.
It was once alive.
So
right.
When you slaughter an animal, that experience makes the animal release all these stress hormones and adrenaline that come from an experience like that. And when you're eating the meat, you're eating those stress hormones. And so I really just think about the food, the people I surround myself with, just any other content that I consume as either blocking my energetic channel or elevating it. And one thing I really want to underscore is that in order to get in touch with your intuition and your Youest You, you don't need to change anything about yourself. You already have that in you. And if you can't access it, it just means there's something in front of it that is blocking your ability to see it. But everyone already has that inside of them. It's just a matter of removing something. There's nothing you need to add or change about yourself. You're already exactly as you need to be. There might just be extra things you don't need on top of it, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love what you're saying. And I think, so I always think, okay, people that are listening and it's like, what are the takeaways or what can you do? That even in what you're saying, it's that idea of, you have a mirror, you have a window, let's say that's really dirty. It's hard to see out. It's not that you can't see out. You could, if you cleaned it, if you,
Exactly.
open the shades or the window curtains, which by the way, this just happened in my house. We did a massive cleaning and I'm like, oh my God, I can actually see beautiful gardens and bushes and all kinds of things. And wow. So this is and I love what you said about, it's about the world within you and really getting more in touch with that. And I'm so on the same page. And I think, there's no right or wrong. Like for you, you still eat sushi, which is great. It's just taking out things that are going to hinder you from getting to tune in to what's already there. I think this is really helpful. Were there any books or was there anything that inspired you, Sophie, around especially the way you're eating and anything around? I know you do a lot of eating, reading, they kind of rhyme. Anything in those realms?
Yeah, there's so many. One thing I do, so last year I had a challenge for myself to read a book a day because that was a goal that really excited me. And people said, are you really going to be able to remember what you read in each place? Or, does that really make sense? And it didn't make sense from that lens, but my goal with it was to just absolutely flush and flood my internal environment with generative things. So I can't really remember, to answer your question, I can't really remember which books I read about this, or I could name a couple. Waking Up by Sam Harris is one of my favorite books.
Mm.
I don't know, there's a whole few, Alex Hayden recommended one by Joe Dispenza called Becoming Supernatural. I really liked. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, also by Joe Dispenza, I really liked.
Yep.
There's a bunch of books about similar topics, but I really have a hard time placing which concept was from which book because I kind of just inundated myself with all of this content at the same time.
It's a great start, though. That's a great start. The Waking Up by Sam Harris. So again, I always say if you're driving, don't write this down. We'll have them in the show notes or write it later. Dr. Joe Dispenza is amazing. I got to meet him a couple of years ago at the Illuminate Film Festival. He just oozes.
Oh, that's where you got to hold Michael Franti's guitar, right?
So fun. Oh my God, that was a really, really fun time. No, but those books are Becoming Supernatural and Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Those are both fantastic. So that's great. I just like to give, for those listening, get some inspiration. I want to, okay, speaking of books, so you just happened to write, a best-selling book called Brain Judo, and would love to hear more about the book, inspiration, maybe some nuggets. Take it away, sister.
Yeah. So I'll give you the cliff notes on the background, and then I'll kind of expand on the takeaways, I guess. So the background is I grew up with a really wonderful childhood, went to great schools, had a great family life, and did really well in school, got into a really great program in college, and always kind of had this rebellious side, but was either responsible enough or smart enough not to get caught. And when I went to college, I started doing drugs. It started just with pills and then got into more serious drugs, and then it just kind of kept getting worse. And I got arrested for a felony and fell out of school and then ended up overdosing on drugs. And all of everything that I was planning on doing of, going through my journalism honors program, going to law school, the kind of whole path that I had laid out, I just kind of blew it to smithereens. And there was a whole bunch of twists and turns. I ended up being at a rest stop this is kind of where I'm trying to be more cogent. So it might not make sense, but I might backpedal. I ended up being at a rest stop in rural Illinois on Craigslist.
Okay.
Filled out a job application to work at Cutco to sell knives. And that ended up changing the entire course of my life. So I was 18, didn't really have any direction, couldn't really get a job, couldn't get back into school, had all of this, had a 2-year probation. It was just a whole mess. And that really turned my life around. I met people who I really had this view of my life at that point, that I had an identity of someone whose life was ruined. I was like, okay, I grew up around all these people who had, PhDs and law degrees and blah, blah, blah. And that was my parents and all the people that I grew up around.
Yeah.
And I figured if you don't follow that path, you're just a bum. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm in the bum category now and I should do bum things and whatever. And then being around the world of direct sales, I started seeing entrepreneurship, and both my parents are entrepreneurs, but they did that after they got their MBAs and put their dues in and whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah. I never really thought that's something you could just do and have a great life without all of the other stuff. And so that kind of was the first thing that expanded my schema of what a good life might be, and that I had more options for myself other than just giving up. And so as I started to be exposed to more people in direct sales, I started to notice patterns that there were other people who had traits that I always thought were really bad. So my high risk tolerance, people would always tell me to stop taking so many risks, or my disregard for authority, people would tell me to stop breaking so many rules. And what I noticed is there were people in the direct sales and entrepreneurship space who had those traits and were using them so constructively. And, they're using their disregard for authority to say, rather than breaking rules for the sake of breaking rules, they were using their disregard for authority to say, I hear you that that's a rule. What's a maybe better way that hasn't been done yet? And using it to be innovative. And then, having a high risk tolerance, instead of just taking frivolous, impulsive risks, they were saying, I'm going to really do my homework here and be okay with the possibility of failure and start this new business venture, or do my first comedy open mic, or, ask that person out, whatever it was. That was a really positive application of high risk tolerance. And I thought, and also seeing that made me realize how I could apply those same traits in more positive ways rather than just being a little rascal. So I wrote Brain Judo because it's a book I wish I had when I was 18. Hopefully, if there's someone out there kind of navigating those same traits. So they're obsessive focus, high risk tolerance, disregard for authority, and hunger for variety. And if there's someone out there kind of navigating those traits and feels like I don't really know anyone who has those traits and it makes me a bad person, or I can't stop breaking rules, to kind of show those people there's a whole world of other people like you out there using those traits in really constructive ways and contributing with them. And it doesn't have to be all breaking rules is not always a bad thing, but you need to break rules in the right way. And you need to break the right rules. Yeah. So that's what Brain Judo is. My biggest trait, I guess, that I thought was a flaw is starting lots of things. So everybody, my parents, my coworkers, bosses, former bosses, teachers, mentors, everybody tells me, pick one thing, do it well, give it all your focus, stop starting so many things. You're great at starting things, but then you just kind of get it going and then shift focus and never become excellent at anything. And it dawned on me, why have I been trying so hard for so many years, fighting myself to try and why do I care about being excellent at one thing? What's good about that? Yeah. And I realized most people are excellent at one thing. And so by being pretty good at a zillion things, that's my niche. That's what makes me unique and sets me apart. And therefore it's my superpower. And it feels natural, and starting things puts me in the flow state. And it's something that can be really valuable to the 98% of people who are great at being consistent and afraid to start things. Because I have the exact opposite, I would say, either gift or problem, regardless of how you frame it.
Yeah, I love it.
And so my book that I'm writing right now is called Start Before You're Ready. And it's about, 98% of the time, it is important to be consistent and focus on one thing and really hone in on it and, follow through. But 2% of the time, it's really important to start, even if you don't feel comfortable. Anything that's going to help you grow is going to inherently be out of your comfort zone. And so if it's worth starting, it's worth starting before you're ready, if that makes sense. Last quick thing on this, I kind of think of it as, if you're going to start like a bonfire, the consistency is like all of the wood. That's the majority of the bonfire. You need it there. It's not going to burn at all unless there's wood. You need to keep refueling it with wood. That's what's going to keep it going. And from a time standpoint, the spark of the lighter or whatever you're using is only just a quick second compared to the 6 hours of a bonfire. But you really need both. And you can't burn a bonfire without that initial spark. And so Start Before You're Ready is about the initial spark.
Oh, I love this. So just to kind of recap a little bit, I love the concept of your book and really taking what felt like you kind of were jokingly calling yourself a rascal, right? Like feeling like you didn't really.
I wasn't joking.
Yeah, not joking. She was one, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But transforming and realizing, kind of not just reframing, but taking what could have been looked at as negatives. I relate to definitely some of what you were talking about. And those, like, listening, or if you have a sibling or a partner or spouse or child that's like this, like likes to challenge authority. I know for me, I like to figure things out my own way. Like, I don't want to be given a way to do it. I like to creatively figure it out myself. So it makes sense. You talked about, you could have qualities of being maybe even obsessive, or, having a high risk for high risk tolerance, right? Being able to be okay with risk. And I would say, if you're in the entrepreneurial world and you have any inclination to do that, that's something, the more that you have a stomach for that, I think it can make it a little bit easier to do what you're saying, which is the next book, which is Starting Before You're Ready. And I just love that you're giving ways to make this a positive. You've clearly, for those who don't know Sophie, I've gotten to know you so well. And to me, I'm thinking, my gosh, this superpower, it feels like you're excellent at a lot of things, and you're able to read a book a day and consume information and then be extremely, wise in a topic. And I think it's what I'm getting also, it's owning who you are, right? Being your You-est You, owning that. And I know for me, I never really got, like, I always thought, oh, it's so weird that I make decisions. I never map things. I map them out a little, but I didn't have a business plan when I started my business. I do most everything through intuition. And I've come to realize, like you were saying, we all have these different superpowers, and not to feel embarrassed about it, but to use it as your, I was going to say secret weapon again. I don't like the weapon word. So magic wand, whatever, use it as the strength. Superpower. Yeah. Like you just said. Exactly.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? Yeah. Say
I was
more.
Say it's the marriage of radical self-acceptance and then
love that.
Practical application. So it's not just accepting things and hanging back, and it's not just doing things without the acceptance, but it's being really honest with yourself, not sugarcoating it, saying, this is how I am. These are things I think are strengths. These are things I think are weaknesses. Here are ways that are fulfilling for me to contribute. Here's some feedback that I keep getting, noticing patterns from other people, and then deciding how you really feel about it. So I kept getting the feedback, you need to stop starting so many things. And I didn't just say, no, I don't, or you're wrong. I thought, if my goal is to become excellent at one thing, then that's really true. I do need to stop starting so many things. But is my goal to be excellent at one thing? Yep. And I just kind of, I thought, okay, well, if that is my goal, why is it my goal? And I realized that I was holding on to that goal, trying to be excellent at one thing and fighting my need to always be doing something new because of ego. I really wanted the recognition and the praise of being excellent at something and being the best at something, or having something to put in my podcast bio that sounds impressive. Yeah. But once I think about what really feels aligned, and I come to it from a place of not the fear that I am not enough, but pure love and contribution and thinking about what just really feels right in my heart, I like starting things, and I'm okay with not getting recognition that I would get for being excellent at one thing. It's more important to me. So
love it.
So just to kind of recap that, being really honest with yourself, listening with an open mind to feedback, but then deciding how you want to interpret it and how it aligns with what's important to you. And then putting that into action. So radical self-acceptance and practical application of that acceptance. So as I think a great combination.
I love it. And it reminds me when we started out, with even the way now you've gone even deeper with how you're eating and taking out alcohol, it's like even the next level for you of really getting that, not just radical self-acceptance. I love that wording, but also like what is in, what are my strengths and superpowers? And now I can hear them even more with the way that you're doing, you're doing life. I also love what you said about being open to feedback, but then putting it through that process of what does that feel right? Like aligning with it. Does it align or not? And then of course, action. And this, I know this is all part of your book. So if anyone's really wants to dig in, they can get a lot of this from your book as well.
Yeah. And I, as I kind of have said like 6 times now, which is so important to me, is really coming from a place of service. And so I just make a point of, when I can, answering all the messages I get on Instagram and contact forms on my website that are about questions about how to do this thing, or if there's content people want me to kind of elaborate on more, or things that would be useful. So I'm really reachable on Instagram at The Gratitude Gal. And I know we'll probably touch on that at the end, but I just felt natural to say it right now. I really I want it to be more of a conversation more than just a one-sided vomit of content.
I love it. Well, and I think one of the things you've said a couple times, and I think is so important, as human beings, we often can get caught in this connection to our ego. Like, and you talked about that with the bio, taking out all of the accolades, because you really felt when you did this process, like that's not important. What's important is being of service, making an impact, being approachable. That's one of the things I love about you is you're so genuine and authentic and real. And I think it's good for all of us to think about, is this serving my ego? Or, I know for me, it's always, is this serving the highest good for both myself and all those I'm here to serve? That's kind of my question. And I hear a similar process of what you're asking yourself. And I think, gosh, if more of us did that, if we all kind of went through that, maybe even at the higher levels of leadership and government and the world, that would make a big difference if we looked at service. So I love that focus.
Well, I think it just also makes a difference on the way you interact with others. If you have, if someone says something that kind of rubs you the wrong way and you're in your ego, I think you're either, let me reframe this with different verbiage. So I think that everything, and I also am open, any of what I'm saying I might change my mind about tomorrow, or you can challenge me on it, but at the moment I believe that everything we do comes from either fear that we're not enough or pure love. And so if you're coming from the fear that you're not enough and someone says something that offends you or rubs you the wrong way, you're more likely to be reactive and kind of stay in that space of reactivity. And when you're coming from a place of pure love, the same way that, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but if a little 5-year-old comes up to me and tells me that I'm stupid or something, I'm not going to, punch them. I don't know. I would be like, okay, well, all right, that's your opinion, or, it just, you can kind of laugh it off and just be more patient, or, giggle and just kind of be like, all right, let's go play catch. You know what I mean? Just kind of look at everyone who's grumpy as their inner 5-year-old is having a temper tantrum, and be more patient and have interactions more from that place of patient love, rather than engaging in this headbutting that I feel like happens way too much. So I think that's the other real way that I've seen getting out of my ego benefit my life, is that my relationships have just exponentially blossomed.
Amazing. I love what you said, Sophie, about I'm so with you. Like, we're either in a space, and it's a great question to ask yourself. Am I coming from a place of lack or fear? Or am I in a space of just pure love and compassion? And it's really simple, or somewhere on the spectrum. And typically, I believe, like kind of what you said, our ego doesn't live in love, cancels it out. The ego cannot survive in pure love. I at least that's my belief. But it certainly feeds off of fear a lot. Like, it's kind of the packaged, product with crappy oil that we don't want to be eating. It's like the ego loves that kind of food, that fear.
It's like spiritual candida.
It's spiritual candida. I'm like just waiting for us to say something funky and cool like that. There we go. Spiritual candida. I love it.
There's one thing I really want to say about this too.
Yeah.
The other day, and my boyfriend, like Keith, is so private, so he's going to kill me for saying this. Sorry, Luke. Anyway, but he was so upset the other day. There were some people who were just being very disrespectful in the way they were talking to him, and he was feeling frustrated. And he started listing to me reasons that he's a really high integrity person, and he was like, I'm so kind, I'm so patient, I don't talk to them like that, I blah blah blah, listing all these reasons. And he goes, I deserve to be respected and for people to be kind to me. And it hit me that you don't have to deserve that. Like, yes, if you're going to measure it that way, and that man-made, this equals this kind of measurement scale, then yeah, I mean, he deserves that. But I started thinking about it, and you don't really need to deserve anything. If you worked hard and had a long day and you want to take a rest, you're equally as deserving as if you didn't work that hard or have a long day and you still want to take a rest. You can just have things. You don't have to put pressure on yourself to deserve things. So if you feel like you deserve a certain amount of kindness from the people around you, or you feel like you want to have a certain level of kindness from the people around you, or you want to have an amazing life, or whatever that means to you, or you want to give yourself a little break, or give yourself an exciting new experience, you don't have to you can find reasons to justify it, but the fact that you are is enough of a reason as you ever really need. So I think that's the other thing that kind of gave me permission to come from a place of love a little bit more, was having a little more self-empathy. So that's, I think, a really important thing, idea that I'm kind of Play-Dohing with right now. Not like the philosopher, but like the hand putty.
Right. I was like, wow, that was a good pun, because I'm like, oh, it could be Play-Doh and Play-Doh.
Could be either.
Could be either. Exactly. Yeah. I love what you just said about, really, I think we're talking about worthiness, right? Just, there's not a need to define or have to defend anything. Like, like you said, we're worthy because we're all here as human beings. I love that example. And enjoy playing with your Play-Doh.
But it removes the fear that you're not enough if there's no reason that you need to be enough, right?
That's right.
I mean, bypass the whole thing.
You can bypass it all. I love that. Before we wrap up, I do want to touch upon the Gratitude Gal, and I love that name. And I know, one of the things that I love about you is you're so approachable and willing to engage with people and open and receptive and just really here to elevate conversation and people's lives. And say a few words about, if you'd like, about the Gratitude Gal, and then anything else before we wrap up that you want to share that maybe I forgot to ask you.
Well, the Gratitude Gal is funny because I was so my boyfriend and I have been seeing each other for about 3 months now. I was at we're both from Chicago. We were at Tony Robbins 2 years ago in Florida and just kind of locked eyes across an atrium and just walked over to each other and started talking and found out we had some mutual friends. And he was like, oh, let's stay in touch. Can I follow you on Instagram? And I was like, I don't have an Instagram. And he was like, oh, you should make one. And I was like, okay. So I just made an Instagram and he followed me and we've never talked again. And then a few months ago, I had this Amazon dropshipping business and one of our mutual friends mentioned to him that he could reach out to me about it because he wanted to do that, make one of those too. And so he messaged me on the Gratitude Gal, which is like the only way that we were still in touch. And I kind of blew him off. And then I had stopped drinking. Let me back up and add one last detail to this really fast. I was really committed to being single for as long as possible, but at least for the rest of the year. And I made this list. I was like, as long as I'm already not even really expecting anyone to match this list, I'm just going to be super idealistic. I'm going to make a list of like 200 things that I want in a partner. Like, go big or go home. And so I made the list and I thought, okay, well, the person who matches this list of criteria, what does their list for an ideal partner probably say? And how can I get more? Do I want to get more into alignment with that in the first place? Is that really what I want? But if so, how? And I started looking at my goals from a different level. I had just given up alcohol to help me with a bunch of other goals. And one of my things on my list was I also want to be with someone who doesn't drink alcohol, just because I was realizing the importance of that to me in a lot of different ways. And so anyway, back up, my boyfriend reaches out to me on Instagram, says, can you help me learn how to make an Amazon business? And I kind of blew him off a little. And like a week later, I saw him post something on Instagram about how important not drinking is to him and like everything he's learned spiritually and mentally about himself from that. And so I reached back out. I was like, I'm sorry I sent you a Calendly link and blew you off. Let's really set up a call. And it just turned out to be one of the most incredible alignments of values and interests. And it was really interesting. But the point is, that's how the Gratitude Gal account even got started, which is this kind of funny full circle thing there. But the second thing is, as you make these little seemingly insignificant changes, you're opening yourself up to everything that surrounds those changes. And you don't even really know what that is yet. So it's kind of just like putting an intention and action into the universe, and it brings all these other things you don't foresee into your path. And so the positioning is of being in a better energetic place. You just can't foresee the impact that's going to have down the road. So, yeah. Anyway, I know it's a little mushy there, but that's a whole kind of point that I wanted to make, is make choices that put you in the path of the good things that are trying to find you.
Oh, I love that. Well said. And the Gratitude Gal is the perfect name for that, by the way. So pick names, words, they make a difference. I love that, and really be intentional. It's awesome. Such a cool story. You are such a cool lady. Goodness. For those who are like going to watch this on YouTube, if you choose to, there's a lot of smiling going on.
Oh yeah. Face hurts.
Face hurts, cheek hurts. I know. I was like, my cheeks hurt at the end of these things.
Oh, you're going to kill me. I'm so prolix. Can I just say one more thing? about
Oh
my
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yeah, go for it.
I'm super into this concept of Maki right now. It's not another sushi reference, but I'm
Yeah,
reading this book called Accepting Life as It Is. And there's a
nice,
concept called wabi sabi. Again, not a sushi reference.
hilarious.
Wa means harmony, and sabi means just like the progression of aging of things in the world. And so I realized, so anyway, wabi sabi is the idea that like if you have a chair that is falling apart. It just shows the character and that the life that the chair has had. Or if you have a person who smiles a lot and they get wrinkles,
Yeah.
that's showing a lifetime of smiling. And the idea of Maki is that you just don't have to change things. They can just be how they are. And that's great because that's how it is. Like, that's great because that's how it is. It doesn't have to be anything else. And I have always, since I was like 12, gotten lots of treatments done and, always getting microdermabrasion and anti-wrinkle cream and this and that and eyelash extensions and whatever. And as I've kind of let go of that, again, fear that I'm not enough and ego, I have started to not do so much stuff, not put so much products on my hair and face, and not get all these services done and the blowouts and the manicures and all this stuff. And my skin and hair have actually improved and gotten healthier and look better without it. It's amazing. But I used to even worry with how much I smile, that I used to think, oh, I need to smile less because it's giving me wrinkles. Like, what a ridiculous concept. But anyway, it's just another way that by letting go of the fear, you just trust that things are going to improve. Like, my hair and skin look better now that I do less to them. It's just, things just have a way of finding their homeostasis. I don't know.
That's beautiful. No, I mean, I'll just say, to add to this, I think especially for women and women that are listening in, as there's a lot of, there's a huge focus in our society. I mean, you can't miss it, on aging backwards and looking a certain way. It's interesting. I have my mom, Helene. She's 76 and is proud of all of her wrinkles. I mean, she's just loves them. Like, it's really cool to see, when I say, Mom, have you thought about some cream or something? I mean, I know she's not going to do anything else, but she's like, I love every single one of these wrinkles because they got me to where I am. I've smiled my way through to have these. I mean,
love that.
Very positive person. And so I love that. It's like embracing what is and not needing to change it. I think that's phenomenal little nugget of wisdom to leave everyone with. And I practice this myself, as we're all aging, right? And I'm like, oh, yep, that's part of being happy or connected or having emotions is
alive. Yeah.
And being alive. Yeah, exactly. This would be a cool shift to have, I think, especially for women, a lot less pressure. And I love that term Maki. That's very cool. I'm so glad you brought that up. Really cool. Miss Brain Judo, Sophie Morrison, who is the gratitude gal and super wise beyond, I'm not sure your years, but you're super wise, whatever they are.
24, going on 90.
Yeah, going on 90, old soul, clearly. And of course, this term on Maki. There's so much great wisdom here and so grateful for you. I'm the gratitude gal, grateful for the gratitude gal.
Well, there can only be one.
Yeah, I guess I'm something else. I couldn't think of anything quick enough. I'm the thankful gal, grateful for the gratitude gal. How's that?
You're also the gratitude. We can both be gratitude gals.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you, Julie. Every time I talk to you, I know we kind of chatted about maybe things we might discuss today on the recording, but I didn't even really feel a need to do that. You're like one of those positioning things I was talking about. I know every time we talk, it's just going to blossom into beautiful conversation. So thank you for being you and being in my life and having this incredible podcast. I just love everything that's going on here.
Aw, you're awesome. I feel the same. And it has been such a gift. And for everyone listening in, if you want to connect with Sophie, you are super approachable and easy to connect with, and we'll have all the info, but share away. I know you love, connecting with other heart-centered human beings. So
I do, as long as they're not garbage thoughts.
Right. It's not the garbage thoughts. Yeah. Throw those away.
No such thing as a bad question.
That's right. Well, we love you and thank you so, so much.
Thank you.